Welcome in to the I-80 Boys podcast. I am one of your hosts on this show, Chris Vaca, and this guy would actually be to my left, but he's got that Georgia backdrop going on again. Never seems to change it. Who is this?
Well, I'm your co-host on this nautical-themed adventure, old Christian Hunt.
Okay, awesome. Christian, how the hell you doing, man? I ask you every week, but how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, Chris. You know, like I said, it's Wednesday. It's hump day here, so I'm ready to get through the week, man. You know, I'm looking forward to a good weekend. What about you? How have you been?
Been good, man. I say it every freaking week, dude, but I think we're down to like 40 some odd days to the college football season starts, bro. So I'm super pumped about that. And I think we'll kick it into we got Nighthawk here saying you guys were pretty tough on Bama and Saban. Why, Christian? Why were you tough on them?
You know, Chris, this is something that I've kind of thought about. I mean, it's been very interesting, the whole Saban thing and the Alabama thing. We've got a lot of Alabama fans that are fired up. We've even got LSU fans that are starting to kind of come in and say, well, you don't know Saban, you don't know what Bama is capable of under Saban. And it's kind of like, well, I know the facts are the facts, you know, and again, it's not that we're trying to piss anybody off or throw out a super hot take here or not recognize that Bama doesn't have a bunch of talent. They don't have Nick Saban. I think the reality of it is, and we were kind of talking about this before the show, is, you know, listen, Saban is kind of in a very interesting spot, you know, here, where he's replacing both coordinators, Chris, something he's done before, but every time Bama replaces coordinators, they always either replace from within or they get a splashy hire, you know, somebody that you'd be happy to have. Like this, for example, in this offseason, they wanted to go bring in Jeremy Pruitt. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, Cliff Kingsbury was kind of who they wanted is their top options. Instead of that, they had to settle for Tommy Rees and the old Miami coordinator. Yeah, Kevin Still. That's who it was. Thank you so much. I kind of forgot there. So, you know, Kevin Still's been with the program before. He did a great job with them, you know, at a certain point as their defensive coordinator. My only thing of it is, who's going to be that guy? You know, for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years plus, they've had elite quarterbacks in that program. You know, you've gone, and we touched on this before, you've gone from a guy like Jalen Hurts to Tua, to Mac Jones, to Bryce Young. Who's that next guy going to be?
Right. No, and you're exactly right. And, you know, the reason why I think they wanted Pruitt. I don't know if you know this, but like with the whole Tennessee alleged or not alleged, you know, they came out and did the investigation, were found guilty of all this, you know, crap or whatever, got to keep their bowl game that they get to play in. And that's great for this upcoming season, but he's on like a 1-year probation. So even if they did get him, he's got to sit out like a year, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the Cliff Kingsbury, I heard that name thrown around a lot. You know, obviously got fired let go or fired by the Cardinals this last year in the NFL. So, but I'm with you to answer your question, Nighthawk. I don't consider us being hard this year on Alabama. I really don't. I think I said 10-2, man. I'm not. I guess when you lose Will Anderson Jr., who's going to fill that spot on defense? I mean, that guy was a stud. You lost your best running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, who I don't see anybody replacing him this year. I mean, I'm sure Bama's, we all know, has got a ton of talent, Christian, especially on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. But Jahmyr Gibbs was a stud last year. There's a reason why he was taken, you know, super high in the draft. And the biggest question, like you touched on, Christian, who the hell's going to play QB? They ain't got nobody. Bryce Young was amazing. It looks like you're pulling up my boy here, Jalen Milroe. I'm not saying Jalen Milroe can't be a good player this year, but to duplicate what Bryce Young has done or Mac Jones and, like you said, Tua and Jalen Hurts and all these guys they've had come up the last, you know, 5 to 10 years, I just don't see it this year. I just don't see how people from Alabama or Alabama fans could say that they're going to be better than what they were last year. I mean, the defense was questionable in big games last year. That was a big thing for me. I think their defense has got some question marks this year going into the season. And they don't have any big-time receivers either. I'm not saying guys can't step up, and guys will step up, but to the level that they've had in the past, man, that's where I am a little bit lower on Alabama this year, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Chris. And I think for me, the other side of it, too, is, you know, now I'm looking at it a little more. Jalen Milroe, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts, right?
Yeah.
Like he reminds me of Jalen Hurts with a little less accuracy. You know what I mean? Like that's what I look at here. He's got he's got a 58% completion rate last year. You look at, you go back and you look at Bryce Young, for example, a guy that was incredibly efficient. He never finished, other than his first year and playing very sparingly, he never really finished below 64%.
Right.
As a completion percentage.
Yep.
He never threw more than 7 interceptions in a season. When you look at Jalen Milroe and you look at how many games he played last year, he started one against A&M. He played, I think, a couple of quarters against Arkansas, and then pretty much played here and there very, very sparingly throughout the season. So for me, I really look at Jalen Milroe and I say, okay, I know he can throw it. I know he's a good athlete, but he just seems really young, and you look at that schedule that they have to play this year. Again, I know every year they have to play somebody in the West. They have to play these good teams. But this year, man, they lose a lot. And like you said, they have to replace both coordinators. You're banking on Tommy Rees, and if this doesn't work, you're banking on Tommy Rees and Ty Buckner to come in here and end up trying to save your season. I mean, this was a duo last year that lost to Marshall. To freaking Marshall. At Notre Dame. Wasn't like they were at North Dakota Southwest School for the blind out there. Right. They were at Notre Dame. I mean, I don't understand this in this comparison here. I think now here's what I'll say, because everybody wants to get hyper fixated. Everybody wants to be super biased and say, well, no, you're talking about my team, you're talking about my coach, and you're saying that they're not going to go undefeated and win a national championship. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I said the same thing about my team, which is the defending back-to-back national champions over the last 2 years in college football, the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't think they're going to win every single game this year. And they have what a lot of people have described as a soft or cupcake schedule. So I think Bama will be much, much better and probably back to competing for national relevance again, national champions or playoffs, whatever you want to call it, in 2024. I just think that they're in for another down year. And yes, I'm calling a 3 or 4 loss year at Alabama a down year.
Yeah, no, you make a good point there, Christian. Like I said, I'm not going to argue with you. Nighthawk, hopefully we answered your questions here, man. I was looking over some of the chat on the Bama pod that we did, last week, and holy smokes, man. Yeah, you can't, in this world, you can't say anything bad about anybody's team these days, Christian, without somebody getting offended. I take a lot of shit for being a Husker fan. I can't walk around like you do with the back-to-back, I mean, it's got to feel good, but like I said, there's going to be one national title winner every year, dude. I mean, I know it sounds really simple, but it's like Bama this year, I said 10-2. I think that's a great season for Alabama and the question marks that they have in my mind coming back, Christian, overall. So that's really all I got to add on Bama, man. Like I said, I know Nighthawk, he's a Roll Tide guy. So I think it's going to be a bumpy ride this year, though. I really do.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Chris. Well, let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump into our first segment here where we are going to preview a little bit of the Pittsburgh Panthers. Chris, how do you think the Yins are going to do this year?
Well, no, I'll talk a little bit about last year. I think I'll talk about even the year before last year. I think these guys got like 20 wins. Pat Narduzzi does. He's their head coach. He's done a great job there. He's been there for a while. But last year, 9-4, man. I think the year before that was when they had the Kenny Pickett, Jordan Addison years. I think they won 11 games, if I'm not mistaken, that year and had a really breakout season there for the Panthers. But 9-4 last year, like I said, finished 22 in the AP poll. That's not bad. 5-3 in conference. 31.3 points per game last year on offense. That put them at 45th in the country to finish the season. The defense gave up 24.3 points a game. That's not terrible. That was 51st in the country. Strength of schedule at 62. They lost 7 players to the NFL draft off last year's team. That's my big question mark this year with the Panthers, and I'll let you kick over some of the players here, Christian. But that's a big deal to me and the Panthers looking forward here this year. I like I said, I'll let you. I know how you get real deep into the stats here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you said it best, Chris. I mean, 20 wins over the last 2 years. I mean, back-to-back finishes in the top 25. Pat Narduzzi, to me, he's one of those consistent coaches, right? I mean, he's just been very consistent there at Pitt. And he's done all that while losing some major talent on both sides of the ball. To me, and this is where I get really interested in this, on the offensive side of the ball, is you get journeyman quarterback Phil Jurkovec, who's going to be coming back, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He started off as a very highly touted prospect at Notre Dame, okay? Due to not playing consistently, so he basically didn't get a chance to really play all that much. He played a little bit here and there at Notre Dame. I think that was back when they had Ian Book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He ended up transferring to Boston College. When he was at Boston College, obviously he had some up and down play there, and he was injured a little bit too, right? So, here's the thing, man. Jurkovec, he's coming home to Pitt. He's a Pitt guy. He's going to have to replace a guy that was in a tough situation in Keaton Slovis. But to me, Slovis wasn't terrible, but he also wasn't great either, That's just the things I'm kind of looking at with this. Here's the other interesting part of this, Chris, too. I've kind of been digging deep into the Pittsburgh Panthers. He gets to reunite with his former coordinator, Frank Signetti Jr., who he had at Boston College during his best year there. Okay, so his best year there was under Frank Signetti.
Gotcha.
It's an easy transition. I think it'll be pretty good for him. They're going to have to improve their passing offense, though, because they saw a huge dip with the loss of Pickett, Jordan Addison, and Mark Whipple. They fell all the way. I think they were top 3 or top 5 in passing offense 2 years ago. Oh, yeah. They fell all the way down to 78 in terms of passing offense last year. Chris, I'll kind of kick it back over to you to kind of get some more of your thoughts.
Yeah, no, you bring up some good points. Like I said, Jurkovec, he just, you said the word perfectly. That's the word I was going to use to describe. He's been very inconsistent, especially those years at Boston College. I think he's a capable quarterback, but a lot of their success, if you will, this year depends a lot on him. If he plays well, and I'm not saying he's got to be a world beater. I'm not saying he's got to go out there and have the year that Kenny Pickett had, right? We remember that 2021 season, Christian, where Pickett was slinging the ball all over the place, and that's why he's starting with the Steelers on his sophomore season this year. But the big thing is, they lost some key pieces last year with a 9-4 record. 9-4 ain't bad at all, But what I get out of this year is more than anything, Christian, is they did their last year. Excuse me. I think they finished the season number 2 in sacks per game last year. Their defense, I think they're averaging almost 4, which is amazing. I think Nebraska as a whole had maybe 4 the whole year. No, I do. I think if they can, and they bring 5 starters back, on the defense, if they can keep that together. And this is the ACC. They play in a conference where I think there's 2 teams that are really, really good in the ACC, and that would be obviously Clemson and Florida State, who I'm really, really high on this year. North Carolina's in that mix, Christian. We haven't talked about them a lot this year, but they should be solid under Mac Brown again with, Drake May coming back. But Pitt's got a chance in that division to really do something this year, Christian. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on, I know you're probably going to break down a little bit of defensive stats here, but I mean, just Pitt's a very interesting team to me. I think this is one of the reasons why we kind of decided to cover these guys, because I don't think they get enough coverage. And Pat Narduzzi, he's in his 9th year, Christian. He's been a very consistent, good coach. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're exactly right, Chris. I mean, I think one of the things you're touching on there is, with all that, they lost a lot of talent the year prior. I think on the offensive side of the ball, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that too. Yes.
Last year, they lost, or this year, they lost a bunch of production on the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
Really all over the field. One of the things when we talk about loss of production, Chris, they did lose a 1,400-yard back rushing, not all-purpose, 1,400-yard back last year in Israel. Not going to try to pronounce his last name. Sorry, Pitt fans. They don't pay me enough out here to do this. I'm the one that pays me, so don't worry about it. But they're going to replace him with Rodney Hammond Jr., who's very capable. He had close to 500 yards rushing last year and 5 touchdowns. So I think Rodney Hammond's very capable of doing, what needs to be done and picking up some of that slack. In the receiving room, they are going to have to replace a 1,000-yard receiver in Jared Wayne. Jared Wayne, when they lost Jordan Addison, a lot of people were like, how can he step up? I think he stepped up and he did a great job
last year.
Yeah. So they're going to have to look to Florida transfer Dejon Reynolds to pair nicely with Kanata Mumfield, Bub Means, and tight end Gavin Bartholomew. So I think they'll have a pretty decent group of pass catchers, man. They've got some people, that can absolutely go out and catch the ball and give, Phil Dracovic a good chance out there. The O-line should be good as well. They returned 3 starters. I think they had a combined 84 starts amongst them. So they've got a really good shot there, Chris, to do something good on offense and maybe take another couple steps forward this year on offense.
No, you hit the nail on the head, Christian. I want to argue with you, but maybe we'll argue on the end of the year's record here. But I'm with you, man. Like I said, it's funny because their offense lost a lot of pieces in 21, 22. They lost some guys off the defensive side of the ball. But I don't expect – I kind of hold Pat Narduzzi in a weird way to a pretty high standard, man. I feel like they're going to get it done again this year. The ACC is very top-heavy in a couple teams. Pitt's not an easy place to play at either, by the way. I mean, they got a nice home record there at home. So, like, they're tough. They're kind of a smash-mouth, old-school kind of football team most of the time, too, except for that 21 season where, of course, they sling the ball all over the field.
Oh, 100%, Chris. Another thing you bring up Pat Narduzzi, and I kind of want to touch on this. It's funny because you look at Pat Narduzzi, he kind of's got that Dabo element to him. You know what I mean? He's not afraid to talk, speak his mind, so to say.
No, you remember, I think it was last year, you know how we talked about Trent Dilfer at UAB or whatever about other coaches poaching players, right? Pat Narduzzi called out, God, who the hell was it? Was it Nick Saban or something? It
was Dion, I think. It was recently, too.
Well, maybe. He did. No, you're right. It was with the Dion thing. And then it was Lincoln Riley about the Jordan Addison thing. He got pissed about it. And he had, like you said, got the little Dabo Sweeney effect going on. He ain't afraid to you put a mic in front of him, man. He ain't afraid to say what he really thinks. I kind of like that about him, man. He's a good guy, man.
To put it bluntly for Yins, he talks a lot of shit, but he backs it up, and I like that. I like that in a coach. He's not backing it up necessarily with winning national championships or competing for a playoffs, but he's doing something very respectable in the ACC, and I like that, dude.
Yep. No,
Chris, we talk about it, and we're going to kind of transition over to the defense here. When we're looking at this, they ranked. You said it already, but they ranked second last year in sacks. They also ranked number 23 in total defense last year. Nice. Pat Narduzzi, he always has good defenses, right? And I expect nothing less this year from him. Nope. However, he did lose 6 starters from last year's team. I would say most notably was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, Kalijah Cansey.
Yep. Stud.
Yeah. Stud. Absolute stud. He's faster than you are, Chris. He weighs 300 pounds.
Yeah, no, he's a beast. You do know the other stud that used to play there on defense. His name is Aaron Darnold. He kind of looks like you.
Well, I mean, a little bit. You know what I mean? He's got a little while to go before he gets quite up to this level of mass that I've been cultivating. Thank you for that.
You're right. Yeah, you'll never hear that again, Aaron Donald and you ever put the same sentence. But here we are.
No. They're going to look to lean on defensive tackle David Green up front. He's going to be the leader of that defensive line. I think he's going to step up and have them playing right. At linebacker, they do get 2 seniors back in Bengali Kamara and Shane Simon. They're going to look to return, and I think they're going to take their gameplay up to that next level. The strength of this unit, and it is really without doubt, the cornerback positions. They return MJ Devonshire, Marquise Williams, and AJ Woods. Chris, they're all going to be locked in, ready to go here. I originally had put, when I started doing my research, the biggest question mark was both safety spots for me. I think Philip O'Brien is going to be one of those really good free safeties for him. I was watching him in the spring game. He kind of was flying up, making some plays. He always was finding the ball, so they're going to be really good with him. But that other safety spot, they kind of have to figure out there. They kind of have a couple options, and that's really what I want to see, how they kind of do that, right? The biggest thing, and we talk about this almost every single week, I feel like, with any team that we cover, is if your front seven can cause havoc, I really like your chances. That's the easiest way if you've got a weak back end in the secondary. Absolutely. That's the easiest way to cover it up, is if you can cause havoc up front.
Nope, 100% agree. Like I said, man, like I said, we'll get into the record prediction. I'm assuming here shortly, but no, I do think that defense. I think they finished second in sacks per game this year. Probably not. That's tough to duplicate. But I will say, I actually think overall their defense, possibly could be better this year. And if they are, and like I said, the big question comes down to quarterback play on the other side of the ball, Christian. If he's even I don't want to use the word serviceable. That's thrown around a lot. But Pitt's going to be right in the mix, man. Right in the mix.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, with that being said, let's kind of jump into our record prediction for them. Where are you at? Where do you got Pitt this year, Chris?
There we go. Here's the thing with Pitt, man. I always say this when we do our record predictions, but I do go through this when we know we're talking about a team, and I do some research here. Obviously, we're not going to talk about Wolford. Cincinnati is going to be really down this year, I think. West Virginia, I think, is one of the worst teams in the ACC this year. They got a lot of pressure on their head coach over there, too, to win. He's probably on one of the hottest of hot seats there is in college football, Christian. The North Carolina game is very, very interesting to me for Pitt. North Carolina is very good on offense, not so good on defense most years. But this was a tough one for me, but I'm going to give North Carolina the nod. God, even though it's at home for Pittsburgh, this one's a tough one. Va-Tech, I'm going to pencil a win there. I think that game could be kind of tough, though. Va-Tech's not the easiest place to play in the world. Louisville's another one of those, Christian, that we've talked about a little bit here and there. I think they're going to be solid this year. They do bring back a lot on that team as well. I'll just break this down a little bit further here. I'll keep going through these other teams before I give my actual prediction. But Wake Forest, I'm not overly worried about them with Sam Hartman playing at the next team we're talking about at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins that one. Florida State, obviously, I'm ultra high on them. I got Florida State pretty much running the table this year. I know my FSU fans fear the spear, baby. Here we are. Syracuse, Boston College, Duke, guys. Here's my thing. I have Pitt penciled in. I'm kind of torn, Christian, between 8-4 and 9-3, and that's where I'm at. I don't know if that surprises you. I know you're going to get either cry or yell at me, one of the two, here in a minute. But I think the losses for me are going to be Notre Dame and Florida State for sure. I'm going to pencil in that North Carolina one, but that Louisville game to me is I'm on the fence with that one, and I'm also on the if it's not Louisville, Christian, I know nobody talks about Duke. I know that. I know their season last year, everybody says was PUD. They didn't play anybody. Had a tremendous season last year. But if they slip up somewhere in there, and we could say and if or but, and I get that, but I'm leaning on 8 or 9 wins with Pitt this year, which I think is a good record. I don't expect anything less than 8. I will put that out on the table, Christian. I want to hear your thoughts. And what do you got here? You gonna blow me away with like a 10-2 season or a 6-6?
Man, listen, I would love to disagree with you, but I actually put him at 8-4 as well. We don't agree often. We don't confer on this list before we do this. By the way, let's make sure if you're a Pitt fan, be sure to comment down below. Like the video, comment, and tell us what do you think Pitt's going to do.
If you don't mind if I jump in on that, I want to hear more about Pittsburgh fans. I feel like they're a team that slept on a lot in college football, Christian. And maybe it's because I'm out here in the Midwest, and so are you now. But it's like, Pittsburgh fans, please let us know more about your team and what you guys think. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, Yins, get your ass in the comment. I think that's what they say. I don't know, but we'd love to hear from you either way. Chris, I've got him at 8-4. I've got him at 8-4. I got losses to UNC, FSU, Notre Dame, and a surprise loss somewhere along the way here. I could see a scenario where they win 9 games, but I could also see just as much a scenario where they win 7 games too. I know you said there's no way they lose more than 8.
I don't think so.
Well, let me throw this out here at you because I guarantee you didn't really touch on them that much. When I was looking through their schedule, I kind of wanted to just double check something here. And when I was looking through the schedule, I wanted to double check this. I was looking at Cincinnati. Dude, Cincinnati is a surprise team to me this year. Yeah, I know you're shaking your head no, but listen. Do you know who Cincinnati's quarterback is, Chris?
Who the hell did they get over there? Who is it?
They got former Florida quarterback Emory Jones.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, that kid's talented. Right? He's talented. He can do something. They lost a shit ton of people, and they bring him in a bunch of transfers, so it's very hard to figure out what Cincinnati's going to do. But they also have Coach Scott Satterfield. Scott Satterfield, former Louisville coach. He's coached in this conference for a little bit, so I think he kind of relishes in those smaller opportunities. He was at App State and did some good things there. Chris, this isn't about Cincinnati. This is about hit, and this is what I'm going to say. If they can get past Cincinnati and they can get past West Virginia, you're absolutely right. You touched on it, where West Virginia has an opportunity this year with Neil Brown. They have to do something. They literally have to do something. Winning that game for West Virginia would be huge for that fan base. So they're going to probably...
That's the backyard brawl, right? That's their big one, right? Like you guys are with the Gators over there.
100%. It's not been much of a brawl as of late.
Oh, boy. Florida fans. Anytime I can get anything in on them, I will.
No, I think Pitt's going to be just fine this year, Chris. I mean, I think overall Pittsburgh does get enough production back. Here's the thing, to stay relevant this year, right? To stay relevant and have a good season. But their schedule also does get a little bit tougher as well. Again, they've got to play Florida State, Notre Dame. You've got UNC, which, I mean, they played UNC last year as well. Daniel says in the comments here, he's got them beating Duke, but also losing to Wake Forest. Okay. There's a couple of games in here, and I've kind of watched a lot of other people when they do their breakdown saying they might be lucky to win 5 or 6 games this year.
That surprises me, man.
Well, and I think
I will say this. Sorry to interrupt you, though, Christian, but Vegas. I don't like. I feel like I'm the guy that brings up Vegas, but I do bet quite a bit college football. Vegas has them at 6.5, so that's one of those. Yeah. I mean, that's barely qualifying for a bowl game. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. Now, who does Vegas play for, or do they coach somebody, or remind me again?
They don't either. But what I will say, though, Christian, they tend to make a lot of money and keep building casinos, though, as I keep saying. So I think they do all right. Like I said, I'm the guy going way over on that. I'm going 8 wins this year with Pitt, man. I really am. I'm high on them, man.
I know. I'm just giving you a little bit of shit. Listen, Vegas is taking
good for you too, because you just brought up a Florida quarterback playing at Cincinnati, and whatever.
Hey, he was smart enough to leave. All right, he knew what he was doing. Saw the writing on the wall. He couldn't read it, but by God, neither could I. Hey, so listen here, Chris. I think that again, I think we're kind of right on here. 8-4, 9-3, 7-5, somewhere in that general area. And I think most of the ends would probably be pretty happy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, guys, let us know, Pittsburgh fans. Let us know. Let us know why we're wrong, why we're right, or why Christian's overweight. Either way, let us know. So,
yeah. Let us know why Chris is old over there, too.
I was just born before you. That's all.
Well, hey, by God, just live a little faster.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
All right. Well, Chris, the last takes here for us of the show. Yeah. Hot take. Illinois wins 8+ games this year, Chris. What do you think, you crazy son of a buck?
I have gotten some debates recently with some of my friends. I got some Iowa friends out there. I got some I can't barely even address them. Some Ohio State fans that are my friends, which is tough. And this Illinois thing got brought up a lot recently, Christian. This is why I wanted to talk about these guys anyway. I am high on Illinois this year, man. I'm going to tell you why. Christian. I want you to sit back. I want you to listen once in your life to me. Defense was number 1 in the nation last year, right? And I know we're not talking about last year, but they only gave up 12.8 points per game, Christian, last year. That was better than your Georgia Bulldogs, by the way. Now, are they better than the Georgia Bulldogs? No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. No, don't get all excited over there. But I'm going to say this. I like Brett Bielema, dude. He was at Wisconsin. He went over to Arkansas, took the money. Found out the SEC is probably the toughest conference in America in his terms. Got out of there, went to Illinois, dude. He had their best season last year in like 11 years at Illinois, and I believe they went 8-5 last year, which was huge for them. Now they lose. What the hell is that? Brown, the running back. He went to the NFL.
Yeah,
he was like
Chase Brown.
There you go, Chase Brown. 4th or 5th leading rusher in the country last year. Anybody knows anything about Brett Bielema? He likes the massive offensive lineman going to pound the football. I mean, that's just what the guy does. He relies on the defense. I don't think a thing changes this year. They got a few pieces to fill. They got a new quarterback coming in this year. If you look at Illinois though, and like I said, I've had some heated discussions about Illinois. People are telling me, again, I'll bring up Vegas has got them at 5 or 5.5, 6 wins. They're not going to be near as good. It was a fluke year for Bielema. Bullshit. I don't think that at all. If you look at their schedule, their toughest games are Penn State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Maryland. I'm throwing Nebraska in there. Yes, I am Chris Vaca. I am from Nebraska. I'm throwing Nebraska in there. But they don't have to play Ohio State or Michigan. Penn State's obviously going to be really, really good this year. We know that. Wisconsin's got a new coach. Nebraska's got a new coach. Minnesota is one of those teams that a little bit of a duplicate of an Illinois type of team. They play smash mouth football up there. I have them penciled in. I did breakdowns on this several times, Christian. I have them at 8 wins this year. I really do. I think they get there. I know you're going to laugh at me. You're going to call me a stooge. You're going to call me a Big Ten homer. You're going to do whatever you have to. But I do this year. I think Illinois is going to be a decent football team. I'm not saying they're going to win, the West over here, but I think that they're going to have a solid season. I think it's going to be relatively tough for anybody that comes and plays them this year. And it's Brett Bielema, man. I mean, you know what he's going to do. I don't think he's going to change the world or light the world on fire. And, all of a sudden now they're going to come in and run an air raid style of offense or run a spread or anything. Big Ten football, Chris, you've watched enough now to know that a lot of Big Ten teams like to run the ball. I think they're going to be ugly games. Like last year, Illinois had some ugly wins. But, hey, at the end of the year, your record is what it says you are. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I kind of told you what I thought about this before we got on air. What did I say to you, Chris?
You said I'm a stooge.
Well, that's what you get for believing in me. Listen, this is not a hot take. This is probably one of the coldest takes we've put on here yet. I had to get him riled up. Had to get him going. Chris, they bring in a sophomore, former 4-star quarterback in Luke Altmaier, who played at Ole Miss. Okay, so on paper, they have a decent quarterback, but I'm going to go a little step further than this here. In some research that I could put together on this kid, all right, he lit it up in the spring. A good defense, like you said. It was a good defense that he lit up. They didn't have a game due to bad weather, but he did great from what I've been told. Also, he was Matt Corral's backup as a true freshman and even pushed Jackson Dart last year for the starting job at Ole Miss. Now, he didn't win it, right? But he pushed an SEC caliber fringe competitor with the old Lane train for playing time. You touched on it, Chris. Brett Bielema can definitely coach. We know that. Here's a stat for you, by the way. Chris, in 9 seasons as a Big Ten coach, split between Illinois and Wisconsin, Bielema has only not won 8+ games twice. One of those was his first year at Illinois, which I don't know anybody that could have won 8+ games 1 year taking over Illinois.
He inherited a team, I think, that won 2 games the year before under, I think it was Lovie Smith, if I'm not mistaken. They were bad. Yeah. So you touched on it. They do lose out on Chase Brown, but they do get a good bit of production back in that wide receiver room. And they upgrade in the quarterback room as far as I'm concerned. So defensively, they lose out on coordinator Ryan Walters. He's now the coach over at Purdue. But they're one of the best in the country last year. And they get back a ton in the front 7. Let's just be honest here. Bielema's going to have them ready to play on both sides of the ball. With that, I know this is a really interesting thing, and I like to pull this up here. I'm going to bring up their schedule right here for you. And we're going to take a look at it. Chris, Toledo, that's a win. Kansas, I think it's a tough game, but give me Illinois in that game. Thank you.
Or Illinois. Yeah, Illinois. I think I'm saying that right. Anyways, Penn State, that's a tough one. I think they could pull it off. If they play that game 10 times, maybe twice they'll pull it off. It just depends what happens. Some weird fluky stuff might happen. Let's just say they lose that game, though, for this purposes. We've already pissed off the Penn State fans plenty in the last couple of weeks.
No offense. Can I add real quick? Penn State fans, they got something coming from me and Christian, by the way.
Yeah.
Here shortly. Anyway, yeah.
So that's one loss. Florida Atlantic, not worried about it. Isn't that where old Thompson ended up, if I'm not mistaken?
Casey's down there, baby.
But I still like Illinois in that game. Purdue, again, Ryan Walters has taken over for them. Still give me Illinois. Nebraska, I'm going to take Nebraska in that game. I like what Matt Rule and Nebraska's doing. Half the channel here, we really got to pull for the Skurs. So, again, give me Nebraska. So that's 2 losses. Maryland, they're going to be a tough team with the younger Tagovailoa in at quarterback. I like their coach. I like what they do, but I really still think that they can beat Maryland. Wisconsin, we took a lot of shit from Wisconsin fans, so it just depends what happens. If Wisconsin can move the ball and they can figure out an identity, and this Mordecai kid is the truth like we keep being told he is, I personally don't think so. Do I think he might be a little better than Graham Mertz? Maybe, possibly. It's a very real possibility.
Much better. Get it right.
What elite quarterback you know that threw 4 interceptions in a spring game?
Christian Hunt.
I threw 4 touchdowns, baby. Dial it in. Dial it in.
You've never been dialed in other than the scale, and it's usually telling you're overweight. But here we are.
Well, we don't count that around here at this household, by God.
Okay.
So, but let's just say for all intents and purposes that they lose that game against Wisconsin, right? Okay. Let's say they lose it. They could. To me, I think this schedule they could. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated, but I am saying they could beat Wisconsin if the offense doesn't play right and Luke Altmaier looks good. Minnesota, you're pretty high on them. You're not super high on them, but you think that they can kind of shock some stuff.
I do.
To me, I think that they can beat Minnesota. That's a given. I think Indiana, that's definitely a given. Yeah. Iowa, that's another tough game. I'll give them an Iowa upset. And I'm going to give them an Iowa upset because I think Illinois is a good enough team to upset one of these teams we just mentioned between Penn State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, or Iowa. I think they will absolutely win one of those games.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. Not at all.
Northwestern, come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, there's some problems down there. Holy shit.
That's 3 losses in 12 games. They're going to win 9 games this year.
Love it. Wow. And that's I thought when you were bringing this up, the way you approached me after I gave my prediction, you said this was the coldest take you had done. I thought you were going to be like, 5-6 wins. I honestly did at first. That's what I thought you were going with, Christian. So you surprised me there. Because like I said, well, guys, we don't consult any of this shit before we do it. But I don't know. Chat's telling me 6-6. We got Crixus in there. We got Children of the Corn saying 6 wins. Man, damn, man. That's what I said. Vegas got them at 6. Like, I think I'm crazy, but every time I break down their schedule, I'm like, I don't think Illinois is a bad football team. I don't mean bad as like 6 wins, but they're not. Brett Bielema, you guys got to watch Brett Bielema play a little bit more, or coach, man. I know it was Wisconsin where he was at before, where he got a lot of those wins that Christian was talking about in good seasons, but he's duplicating that at Illinois. He's going to run the fucking football, and he's going to slam it down your throat. And it's not going to be pretty, Christian. It's not going to be a game where you're not going to see a game, 42-38. That's not going to happen. It'll be ugly. It'll be 21-17 or ball control. That's just, and they don't beat themselves either. That's another thing I like about Illinois in his play styles. Like they just don't turn the ball over a ton. Minnesota's kind of in that way too. And that's where I think there's a lot of these teams middle of the pack on this side of the conference with Nebraska, where, I threw Nebraska in there. Iowa's the same type of school. Their offense is definitely going to be better this year than it was last year. There's a lot of who's to say Illinois can't go out there and knock off a Wisconsin, or maybe pull a crazy one against Penn State, or, I think they can beat Nebraska. Definitely. That's for sure. But or beat an Iowa.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. Like we were talking about, Chris, I think it's one of those things where I know chat's saying, hey, 6 wins. I don't see how they probably pull more than that, but I don't know, man. I really like Illinois. I think it's tough. A lot of people say don't bet against Saban. There's a lot of reasons why, when we talk about this, why I'm not high this year on Alabama and Saban. We touched on that a little bit to start the show off. Why I'm probably a little more higher, I guess you would say, even though I think Bama can win more games, right? I think that Illinois ultimately has a better shot because, well, frankly, you got to look at the schedule. I mean, if you're a consistent coach in this division, you can absolutely do some great stuff with that schedule that we saw there.
Yeah, that's why you see Iowa winning this side or Iowa competing for it most years. Wisconsin, other than you take out last year, Wisconsin's pretty much, I don't want to say dominated this side, but they're usually the powerhouse. I know I'm a little higher on Wisconsin than you are this year, but I think Illinois is one of those teams that can compete over here. I also think Nebraska does have a chance to be, I don't want to piss off anybody from Nebraska, but, halfway relevant over on this side if they start out well. So Illinois, though, I don't think they're an easy out for anybody. I don't. I even if they play, like I said, I'll throw out the Michigan to Ohio State because they don't play them this year. But I think Penn State and them early in the season, Christian, we talk about this a lot, right? Teams look a lot different. Usually you want to get better by the end of the year than the start of the season. That Penn State-Illinois game is game 3. You know what I mean? That's an early game. I think it's going to be I'll say like Lee Corso. I think it'll be closer than the experts think.
I think so too. Like I said, I think Illinois is getting ready. They've done all the necessary stuff, I think, in the offseason to take that next step forward that you want to see programs do.
Yep.
They didn't lose, they lost obviously probably one of their best players in Chase Brown last year, but they upgraded the quarterback position. They get some production back. We talked about it. This is going to be a good thing for Illinois. Guys, right now, as we segue out of all this talk about some of rivals in the Big Ten, let's be sure to kind of put the comments down. We're on our 2-minute drill here. Everybody that knows the show obviously knows that it's not going to be 2 minutes exactly. We'll stay on for a little bit and kind of talk with you guys.
Christian, who do you have? No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say something.
Who do you have, just to keep on topic here while we're talking about this? Do you see Maryland being any sort of threat this year in the Big Ten? I know that's a team that brings back some guys. Tagovailoa is back for, God, I swear he's been there for like 18 years for some reason. Maybe because I just always think about his brother, who's a quarterback of my NFL team. But do you think do you see them? They're one of those teams I think is kind of dangerous in a way, just because the quarterback's been there forever. Same type of system, they're very inconsistent. 100%. But are they one of those teams that kind of scare you a little bit, or I should say scare you, but surprise you is the word I should use.
They absolutely are, right? Chris, I'll be honest with you. I haven't really taken a deep dive into them, so I know a couple of pieces that they're bringing in here. Let's just kind of take a look while we're doing this on air and just see here. I want to see a couple of things. What do you think about them, Chris?
I think they're a team that's kind of, I don't want to sound like a homer here for the Big Ten, but I think they're a team that maybe could surprise some people this year. You know what I mean? Just in the Big Ten, because nobody's really talking about them at all, right? I know we haven't touched on them. I just know they're bringing back a quarterback that's been there for a long time, obviously, and they got some pieces coming back, and we could say that about a lot of teams, right? I sound really generic when I say that, but they're just one of those teams that I don't think their schedule's like overly brutally tough. You see the Penn State, Michigan there. All right, I take that back. Oh shit, they got Ohio State. Yeah, I guess I'll have to digress and look like a dipshit there, but no, I don't know. I just think Maryland's like one of those teams. I know Nebraska plays them later on in the year, so it's like, I don't know if that's really an easy out for us either, I know we haven't dug real deep into that. Michigan State, nothing to be scared of this year probably. Like, they're a team to me that I think is going to be able to put some points up on offense. I don't think their defense is top tier by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, let's take a look here. They bring back, Tagovailoa, obviously Tua's little brother, 3,000 passing yards last year. Right, he also had 4 rushing touchdowns. He put up 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's not terrible there. 67% completion percentage for you Bama fans. That is a lot better than 58. Just in case you haven't been able to figure out math yet, down there. So they bring back their leading rusher last year, Roman Hemby, who had 989 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. Jeez. Let's see. He also put up almost 300 yards in the receiving category, 1 touchdown. So we had 11 touchdowns, probably with about almost 1,300 yards.
Nice.
All right. I'm looking at their schedule here. Let me just see. Deshaun Jones. Let's see. Who else? Yeah, they bring back their leading receiver from last year. They get in some this Caden Prather kid. I can't remember where he was at last year, but that name sounds really familiar if I'm not mistaken. I know he played. I remember hearing that name. He was at West Virginia last year. That's why I remember him. Okay. At West Virginia last year, he put up 501 yards and three touchdown catches. So that's not bad. They've got an opportunity. When I'm looking at their schedule here, Chris, and what they're bringing back, they've got a good shot. I have to kind of break the defense down a lot more and kind of see. But just looking at it from that standpoint, at their schedule, Towson, they can beat them. Charlotte, they can beat them. Virginia, they can beat them. Michigan State, That might be a tough game. Again, I know we've kind of covered them. If Michigan State doesn't come correct, again, I think that Maryland could surprise them. Indiana, yes. So there is a situation.
5-0 off the rip, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-0 off the rip if they play really lights out. Then you run into little bit of a buzzsaw here in Ohio State. Again, this is a very hypothetical situation. This is a very rough take here on this, but I think that if Ohio State, if they regress on offense, I mean, maybe, I'm not going to say, I think Maryland played them a little close last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so too. Don't quote me on that though.
It was close for a little bit, and then in the fourth quarter, I think Ohio State really pulled away in that one. So, I don't know. It really just depends. Illinois, again, we kind of touched on them. I really like Illinois in that game. Northwestern, I'll give them Northwestern. Penn State, I like Penn State. Nebraska, I like Nebraska. Michigan, yeah, I like Michigan. Rutgers.
But there's a path here where they could almost get a 7-win season if some things go right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
the non-con is pretty pud, so.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a good path here for them if they take care of business and they stay relatively healthy that they could win 7 games. I think they should absolutely win 6 games out of the schedule.
Yep. Yeah. No, just a thought about a team that we just don't really think of, and I was looking through the schedule the other day and I was like, Maryland's somebody that brings back a returning quarterback for how many years now, and just one of those things, you know what I mean? Just thought, hey, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Christian. I know we don't consult a lot off air, so.
No, you're absolutely right. A question here comes in from Crixus1123, super fan of the channel for a little while. What's your guys' thoughts on Texas? Chris, what do you think about old Texas?
This is one that we really haven't done a super deep dive on. I'm very high on them. They have been getting a lot of traction in the college football news world lately. Vegas came out with their totals a couple weeks ago. I think they're favored in every game but the Bama game. I think they're Christian, you would have to agree with this. They're got to be the majority favorite, probably to win the Big 12 this year. I know I'm very high on them. I have them going. I have them winning the Big 12, and I have them going, I think, 11-1, obviously. So I have them beating Bama, which any Bama fans are watching. Where's that Nighthawk guy at when I need him? But I think they probably slip up maybe against somebody. I think Oklahoma's going to be a lot better than what they were last year. But Texas Tech's another team in the Big 12 that they're gaining a lot of traction. I have Texas very, very, very high up there this year, top 10. And I actually have them winning the Big 12. Christian, I want to hear your thoughts on Texas. I know we don't talk about them near enough either.
No, I mean, that's something... that's something you bring up there, Chris, and it's very interesting you bring it up about Texas, and we're going to start to do a deep dive on them, I think, here pretty soon, as far as what we think. I will just say this: Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy. I think either one of those guys is I think they're two of the best quarterbacks you can probably get. 1-2 combo out there. I think both those guys can probably go to most programs in college football and start day one. They have Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, a good 1-2 punch at the wide receiver room. They've always got good running backs at Texas. I think their offensive line, they've really gone pretty hard on trying to get that recruited. Sarkisian has. The biggest question mark for me is going to be on defense. Now, last year in that game against Bama, that defense stepped up, and I really like that. I think we've talked about this all the time. Last year, if Texas would have had a quarterback that could have literally walked or stood on 2 feet, Hudson Card, if I'm not mistaken, was limping around all freaking game when Ewers got hurt. So if they could have had if Malik Murphy, hell, even as a very true freshman, could have came in there, he might have won them that game. Outside of that, though, yeah, I'm very high on Texas. I think they might lose a game this year, but that's about where I've got them pegged at. I think they've got a real shot at probably taking over the Big 12 and going to just dominate. I mean, let me see something here real quick. I want to I don't want to give too much away as far as this, but I do want to take a look at their schedule just to see, who are they playing? Because and as well as I do, Texas has added some, or not Texas, but the Big 12 has added a lot of, smaller schools into the fray here. Yeah.
Like that. Yep.
BYU, Houston.
Is Cincinnati over there now?
Yeah, I believe they are. Yeah.
There too. That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, they started off at Rice. Give me that game. Bama, I think they'll beat Bama this year. I've said that all along. Wyoming, absolutely. Baylor, yeah, I'm gonna go with a win against Baylor. Kansas, yes. Oklahoma, yeah. Houston, yes. BYU, yes. Kansas State. See, this is where you start getting into some of this territory here, like Kansas State, TCU. Yeah, I mean,
I would
really
like actually not a scrub either, personally.
No, Texas Tech. I mean, that could be a very interesting game to end the year off. You know, Texas Tech. I think they beat them last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So let's double check on that. But yeah, I mean, I could see a scenario where Texas, you know, they have maybe one or two slip ups here if they play the way I know they can. Yeah, they lost to Texas Tech last year. Mm-hmm. If they play the way I know they can. Jeez, they skunked Oklahoma last year.
No, after Oklahoma beat Nebraska, I went to that game, dude. Oklahoma didn't win like a single game,
but
like Northwestern did.
Yeah, Chris, I could see a very realistic possibility though, where Texas does really well this year. But the other thing about Texas is, you know, they're kind of like one of those teams. Every year we get really hyped on them, and we say they're back. They end up not being back.
I agree. I like Steve Sarkisian, though. I think he's a good coach. I think, like I said, just personally to answer that question, I think Texas has a huge year this year. Yeah. If I was a betting man, which I am, if I had to say who's going to win the Big 12, they're definitely my favorites. I'll leave it at that.
100%. So, Chris, I think this actually brings us to a pretty good stopping point right here.
Yeah, right at an hour. Yep.
Yep. So, guys, we'll be back on Friday with more content for you guys. I think we're going to be covering a little bit of some Ole Miss football, maybe get back into some more Big Ten a little bit with Michigan, Ohio State. So be sure to catch us Friday around 6:30, 7 o'clock, around there.
Yeah, sounds good, Christian. We'll see you then. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the guys, the people that did come out and join the chat tonight, man. We love having that interaction. Like I said, if you guys don't catch us, drop some likes in the comments. Go ahead and ask us some questions. Feel free to tell me I don't know shit about football. I'm cool with it. It seems like the Wisconsin and Penn State fans did a great job of that last week. So love you guys. I'm out. Christian, have a good one, buddy. We'll see you guys.